In late March of 2023, wild fuck 2023, I had the chance to go to Southern California and check out some of the amusement parks there. In fact, today, as of when this video is being uploaded, is the exact 1-year anniversary of when I went to Six Flags Magic Mountain. So, I thought, what better way to celebrate this anniversary than by ranking up all of the coasters I rode during that trip. During this trip, I went from 67 credits to 90 credits. Man, 23 credits in less than a week. How about that? I'll try and keep it short for most of my discussion, so this video isn't 30 minutes long. Before we get into the list though, let us have a moment of screaming for the coasters that were either closed when I went to their respective parks, or those I just didn't get to ride due to time constraints.
Quick! Get out! Get out of here! Motherfucker!
Okay, now with that out of the way,
It's time to get into the actual ranking, and make sure to stay until because it is absolutely insane.
number 23, Tidal Twister.
And then there's...
Tidal Twister.
He's dead.
Tidal Twister.
Dead.
This is the happiest I've been when I found out a coaster closed. Sure, it had decent forces, but the roughness and uncomfortability of this ride totally ruined it. Also, it barely even counts as a coaster. It's more of like a flat ride, but most flat rides I've been on are better than this dumpster fire. If I had to describe this ride in 5 words, I would say fucking donkey dick balls bitch. Number 22, Coast Rider. No Earthbound jokes. This is such a pathetic excuse for Wild Mouse. It's trimmed to death, it doesn't do anything, and the shin guards assault your shins like a razor scooter. I don't even think I said anything out loud when I rode this. It was that boring. Number 21, Timberline Twister.
And then there's...
Timberline Twister.
He's dead.
Timberline Twister.
Dead.
If I had a nickel for every time I rode a coaster that had the abbreviation of TT and the second word of its name was Twister, and I rode it shortly before it closed for good, I would have 10 cents. That isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Yeah, this ride had like a weird seating arrangement and it wasn't too forceful, but I had a lot of fun while getting this credit, that's for sure. Number 20, Jaguar. They really added an exclamation point to it to make it seem more thrilling than it actually is. It's a long ride, but it's also quite bumpy. I also had to take my bag on the ride with me, which was quite strange. If it was smoother, I'd probably place it higher. It does have good views of the park though. Number 19, Apocalypse. I really hate to put this ride so low, but I did not have a good experience here. I had to pee, so I had a weird feeling in my groin the whole time, and it didn't help that the restraints dug right into your gut, which made that feeling even worse, and the ride had a very aggressive vibration. It did have good forces, but I couldn't really enjoy them properly, so I need to give this another try at some point. Number 18, Pony Express. Pony! Not much to say on this one. It's a good first launch coaster. The launch is pretty forceful, but the rest of the ride is very mild. Also, there's a weird restraint system where like there's a restraint that comes from behind you and like locks you forward in like a leaning position. So yeah, that's kind of weird. Number 17, Goliath. Which one? The one at Six Flags, obviously.
Do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down?
Okay, but actually, this is the least exciting hypercoaster I've been on. The airtime hill is decent, and the ending helix is actually pretty damn forceful, but everything else kind of leaves something to be desired. Especially that mid-course. It's like a car accident. Number 16, Scream. Not a bad B&M floorless coaster, but I do like its counterpart in New Jersey more. There's some good airtime on the 0G roll and hang time on the loop, but just a little bit of it. And of course good positives. Can be a bit shaky in some spots though. Also, please put like grass or something in the infield of the ride. I don't want to stare at parking lot lines the entire time. Number 15, Burger King Revolution. This is definitely the best Schwarzkopf I've ridden. It isn't too intense, but it really doesn't need to be. It's longer than Super Duper Looper. There's some forceful bits besides the loop. The build up to the loop is really cool, where it's like sloping down and you're slowly speeding up, and it is glass smooth. Take notes, Skyline. Number 14, Sierra Sidewinder. How does Knott's have two Mach Rides family coasters, but one is so much better than the other? Actually, this thing has a really forceful helix. The spinning is great, and it doesn't have trims. It is kind of short, which is a shame, because I honestly wish it was longer. Also, this really doesn't have a place in the kids section because it's way too intense for just a family ride. Number 13, Ninja. I like this Aero suspended coaster more than Iron Dragon. I like the use of the terrain elements. It's more forceful than Iron Dragon, and it feels much faster as well because you're closer to the ground and you're racing along the mountainside. I do have one complaint though. Please run more than one train on this ride. I had to wait nearly an hour for this. Don't make other people do the same. Number 12, Viper. This is the best Aero with inversions that I've ridden. It was surprisingly smooth for the most part, and the inversions were quite forceful. There's also a really good pop of air time into the mid-course brake run if you sit in the front. I do want to ride this in the back some point so I can get the whip on that first drop, because that looks quite fun. Number 11, DC's Batman The Ride. This is my first Batman clone actually named after Bruce Wayne's alter ego. Of course, very forceful as these rides are known for. It did have a slight shuffle, but nothing to ruin the ride. Overall though, I like Vampire at La Ronde more, as that seemed to run faster and it was more forceful. Number 10, Manta. Before I talk about anything else, mock launches really aren't that bad. They're fun. Although Pony Express did have a more forceful launch on this ride, so maybe that's saying something. This ride has some fun twisting maneuvers as well as a few good pops of airtime. There's one part that really reminds me of Maverick, where it starts launching and then suddenly turns to the left, which just sends you flying to the side. Definitely don't skip out on this one. Number 9, Emperor. A smaller dive coaster than Valraven, so I expected it to be not as good. I was correct, but it still had some interesting aspects. I found it to be whippier than Valraven, and the pacing seemed to be faster, especially without a mid-course. However, there was a noticeable rattle to this ride that made me not like it as much. It really shouldn't have that. It was only a year old when I rode it. Come on, SeaWorld. No, don't do that. Number 8, Electric Eel. Wow, all 3 SeaWorld coasters right next to each other. Well, all 3 good SeaWorld coasters. Electric Eel was my first premiere ride Skyrocket 2, and I must say, I can't wait to experience more. The launches weren't too forceful, but in between you got some good floating and fantastic positive Gs. When you go up, there's a very strong and sustained airtime moment, and the Heartline roll has a great moment of hang time as you stare at the ground. But really, it could do without the discomfort collars. Please remove them. You did that with Icebreaker. Please do it with the Skyrocket 2s. Number 7, West Coast Racers. Again, with the discomfort collars. But besides those, this thing has a lot of unique forces. Several airtime pops, moments of sustained positives, and moments of hang time. Also, I love the forced dueling feature, allowing you to ride alongside another train every single time, unlike another coaster coming up soon on this list. I really love the moment when you're upside down above the other train, kind of at the beginning, and you look up at them, even though the train is upside down, so technically you're looking down, but your head is pointing up. You know what I mean, damn it! Number 6, Full Throttle. While this is shorter than West Coast Racers, I find it to have more packed in. That is better than West Coast Racers overall. I really like the loop and staring at the park while upside down and going through the most sustained moment of hang time I've ever experienced. The stop in the tunnel though is quite harsh, but the backwards launch actually has a pretty good punch to it. There's also good positives there. The top hat has some great airtime on the way down, but I wish the brakes weren't literally on the drop. Number 5, Silver Bullet. This is one of my favorite B&M inverts I've ridden. Every element besides the drop is great in its own way. My favorite parts were the turn between the loop and the Cobra roll, where you get actual airtime, the 0G roll, and from the first corkscrew to the end of the helix at the end. That whole segment is just whip and positives, a little pop of airtime, more whip and positives, and a gray out double helix right above the water. Don't let the shallow first drop fool you. This ride is very good. Number 4, hang time. I am an absolute sucker when it comes to vertical chain lifts and beyond vertical drops, where your gravitational acceleration vector is behind the normal force vector. This coaster is especially cool because it holds you in place right before the drop, and you get a great view of the park and the mountains way off in the distance. This ride is slightly rattly, but I do not mind it that much. The inversions are quite forceful, and there is one moment of hang time, and the airtime hill after the cutback inversion is also quite good. Also, this ride at night is wonderful. Shout out to KCL for the lighting on that one. Number 3, Wonder Woman, Flight to the Magic Sauce. Flight of Courage. This was my first RMC Raptor, and man, it was fantastic. I especially like this ride in the back, where you get dragged over the big elements, like the drop and the turnaround and the dive loop. This thing has great moments of airtime and hang time, and it is pretty long. One thing I have to say about it is the restraint, which can be slightly uncomfortable with all the airtime and the straps just kind of digging into your shoulders. Other than that, great ride. Number 2, Twisted Colossus. I still can't believe I got a duel on my first ever ride on this thing. That led to one of my favorite coaster experiences ever. I like the blue side more than the green side. Green for but not just because of the duel. It has better elements overall, but both sides have their moments. The long drop through the structure on the blue side just absolutely drags you down. The first big hill on both sides is also great, and the Top Gun stall is awesome when you have another train above you. Unfortunately, it didn't duel when I went on the green side, but that doesn't really matter. This ride is still absolutely incredible. And finally, number 1, which goes to Crazy 8 at John's Incredible Pizza Company. This is quite an obscure ride, and it's super cheap as well. The spinning is super intense, lots of ejector airtime. Okay, no, it's actually just a vastly overpriced SBF coaster. First of all, you have to buy admission, which includes endless eating. But what if you don't even want to do that? And then you have to buy a fucking fun cart. What the fuck is this shit? This is what socialism is doing to our country. Okay, I'm sorry, I got off topic. The actual number 1 goes to X2. Ha! I wish. For those of you who were paying attention, you'll remember this from the beginning of the video.
Quick! Get out! Get out of here!
Okay, the actual number 1 is Goofy's Sky School at Disney's California event. Okay, it's Ghost Rider. It's Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. On my first 2 rides, I rode in the 10th row, which was really quite an experience. I love the airtime and the laterals, and especially that awesome drop off the mid-course. But to be honest, I was slightly underwhelmed during those rides. It just wasn't as good as I had heard from other enthusiasts. That was until I got a night ride in the very front row. That made the ride absolutely glass smooth, and the airtime and laterals were pumped up to 11. The second half of the ride after the mid-course drop was just pure insanity with laterals and airtime, all while you're just going through the structure and barely able to see anything. When that ride was done, I knew it was my favorite wooden coaster by far. What a fan-frickin-tastic ride. And there we have it. That is all the coasters I rode in California, ranked from worst to best. Hopefully I can get back to these parks sometime in the not too distant future, so I can get on some of the credits I missed and get re-rides on some of my favorites. The videos for all the parks I went to are in the description, as well as the video for the trip without any amusement parks. And that's all I got. This is Double D, signing off. Peace! What are you still doing here? The video's over. Get out. The video's ended. There's nothing else here. Beat it. Get lost. Scram. Leave the video, you fuck.